why is modern women, was the truth so hard to handle, or did you have a question?
Well, I can answer that question. I think the truth is hard because it will allow or it will force a lot of like have to look in the mirror and self reflect and like even though a lot of women haven't done wrong, it just say, okay, I should have did that or I messed up here or whatever. Like it's
Right.
difficult to accept that and admit that because you still want to be angry or blame somebody
Right.
else. So it's hard to like self reflect.
So let me ask you a question. How old did you say you are? 29?
31.
Uh-oh. Uh, do you have women around you who can be honest with you and just tell you the truth? Okay. What do you want out of life regarding relationships? Would you like to be married one day? I can't. Is that yes? Hello? You muted yourself? I don't know if you mute yourself because I can't hear you. Yeah, you muted yourself. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me? Oh, I didn't mean to hit anything. But
Okay.
yes, I would like to be married.
Okay. Would you like children?
I have one 10-year old
Okay. And how's the relationship with your dad? His dad?
with my child's father.
Uh huh.
We're mutual,
Okay.
but he's in another relationship.
All right. So, do you want any additional children?
No,
Do you care if the man you seeing has children?
no. And I'm willing to date. Like my preference is like older men for one of that's
Okay.
like the main reason.
Okay.
So I'm willing to date older
So,
because I don't want any more children.
okay. So, I've got to be honest. See, this is why I think women need to have women around them that can tell the truth.
Mhm.
Because y'all don't tend to listen to us first. If you want to be married and you have a 10-year-old, that means you got a kid that's going to be with you at least another 8 years. It is a very difficult proposition for a man to go into a marriage knowing he's not going to have any additional children. That removes almost 80% of the reason that men want to get married.
Even if
So,
it's an older man.
well, no, not necessarily if he's an older man, but this is where the competition thing comes in play. You still got a child that you're going to be with 8 years. He could easily go find a woman who's younger with no kids. It's
Hmm.
not going to, because it's cheaper. See,
Okay.
as a single mother, you are going to have to outperform your childless self. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Meaning,
So
go ahead. Go ahead.
my question is, what is the solution to that? Because I still, I've only been watching some of your content maybe like in the past week or two.
Okay.
So, but I haven't heard like a lot of solutions. Like I'm open to like feedback because I don't want any more kids. So
Why
what?
don't you? Well, okay. First off, we got to understand why don't you want any more children?
Because my child is 10 and I'm single, like I'm not dating anybody, so I would have to meet someone, get to know them, get into a relationship, get married. So by the time I do that, how old do you think my child would be? Like 13, 14? So then I just don't want to start the entire process over. I don't want to have like a teenager and a newborn,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Just as
Okay.
like a mother and knowing like
Okay.
my
All right.
limit.
So the solution is to wait till your child uh, graduates.
I've thought about that. But then you
Because,
talk about like the
but
clock.
listen. But okay, see, here's the reality: as a single mother, there are all the choices are not easy. Because the
Right.
first thing I thought of was You're selfish. You want this is about you. I don't want to have an age gap. I don't want to have to do this. Marriage is not something you do for yourself. It is something you do for everything else other than you. Duty, respect, honor. That's what makes a 30, 40, 50-year relationship. If the man wants kids and you don't want kids, that's selfish for you. Understand the reason. So that would mean you may be perfectly lovely when he's got to go into somebody and give him a child. Now, I'm going to ask a hard question. Is it that you don't want to have children, or you just don't want to have what you've already had, which likely wasn't a positive motherly experience?
Mm. And right there, I was thinking the exact same thing. Kevin is on the money. I would assume that her child's father, and again, this is me just assuming early in the video. I really don't know because this is the first time I'm reacting to this. But I'm going to assume she had some type of negative experience with her child's father, and then she's starting to, you know, push that out and say, you know what, I don't want to go through this type of experience with this guy, and like I don't want to go through the same experience with this guy that I had with the last when it came to taking care of children. And there may even be like a bit of resentment there, because if you could ask this woman, would you, if you could do it again, would you have done it differently? She'll say, you know what, I love my child, but yes, I would do it differently. But damn, this stare gives me like the creeps. Like this woman has eyes like Lil Durk. It's like she's staring into your soul. And this is a bit of craziness you got to watch out for, because she's being pretty pleasant right now, and she sounds sugar and spice. But we know, as men, we can read through all of that. Don't let that fool you. The eyes looking like a serial killer.
Okay, you mute yourself again. If you don't get your fingernails off the buttons, stop muting yourself.
Every time I swipe, it just
Okay,
makes
well, I don't know why
me
you keep.
upturn.
I don't know why you
So
keep swipe. I don't know why you keep swiping. Does your phone keep ringing or something?
no.
Okay. Um,
So I don't think it's just me being selfish. I think like I know the
well,
type of woman.
what I asked you initially is that did you have a positive motherly experience?
No,
Okay, so ma'am, listen to what I'm about to say. You were how old when you had your child?
21.
You were 21 in a healthy, happy, loving, committed marriage where you met a man, he met your family, you met his family. He did the traditional things, proposed to you, got your father's blessing. Your family paid for the wedding. Your friends came. You got the ceremony and everything, and then you guys lived together and uh, as newlyweds and enjoyed each other for a little bit of time. And then you got pregnant. And regardless of what, especially if you had a man who's a provider, and you had good health insurance and was able to have your baby in a safe environment, whether you took the FMLA 13 weeks off or you took out the first 2 years, 3 years, or whatever, and you had somebody there day in, day out, week in, week out, your experience would have been massively different, right?
Sure. Hmm.
Of course. And not only that, I guarantee you, she probably would have wanted a bigger family as well, considering they could take care of multiple children and live in a decent home. She would have wanted more children. But now the next man has to suffer because of her old past trauma. And Kevin, again, right on the money. So this woman now wants to let the past affect her new or future boyfriend or husband. But again, she's not even there yet. And this guy has to endure all of this trauma. And again, if the man doesn't ask the right questions, he'll never figure it out. It'll just be another relationship where it didn't work. You have to start taking notes.
Do you think you would still have the same opinion if your husband were to unfortunately be passed, if you were a widow and you were to look at marrying again? Would you still say, I don't think I want any more children?
I'm really not sure. Probably not. But when I
Okay.
say like I don't think it's selfish, it's because I'm thinking about like the type of woman I want to be and the type of wife I want to be like
What
to
is
my
that?
man. And I
What is that?
being like I want to be able to be more lighthearted and just um like my more womanly or bubbly self. And I think that when I'm a mom or when you have a newborn, it's just a lot of work and it's a lot of mental strain and
Of course,
physical
it's a lot of
strain.
work when you're a single mother. It's a lot of work when you're a single
Yeah,
mother. Okay, and this is why having a child out of wedlock is so traumatic.
I agree. I listen.
So,
I
so,
preach that to
so, I mean, and
everybody I know.
what I'm trying to get you to understand is, okay, let's start here. Uh, if you're married, do you want to have to work to pay significant bills in the household? Okay. What percentage of the family financial load do you want to have to be responsible for a lifetime? What percentage?
Percentage?
Yeah, like right now, you have to be responsible for 100% of your family's financial load for a lifetime.
Right.
When married, what percentage would you want to have to be responsible for?
Ideally, zero.
Okay, so you want a man to come in, and what state do you live in?
Arizona.
Arizona. How much is a man going to have to make to facilitate you, a child, and him, and a wife that doesn't work?
6 figures
Uh huh.
in Arizona.
Okay, six figures can be anywhere from $100,000 to 999,000.
Maybe 250K. This is just a guess.
Yeah, that's about it. And did you go to college?
No.
Okay. What percentage of men in this country earn $200,000 or more?
Oh, I've heard you say this before. It's a very small, like less than 10%. It's a very small percentage.
No, that's less than 100. That's over 100. You talk about men in the top 3% of men. And I'm going to be very honest with you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Men in the top 3% are not looking to pay for anybody else's children.
Mm-hmm.
They can go make their own families. Men like that want legacy because they've had to make themselves a high value man. They don't want to provide for another man's legacy. Every dollar they put in your child is paying for another man. It is biologically ridiculous for us to do that. Let's take it away from human beings, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If a new set of male lions takes over a pride of female lions, what happens to the lion cubs from the other men?
I don't know.
What do you think?
I don't know. Lions are
What do
ruthless,
you?
so I don't know.
No. What do you think though? You got 5 lionesses, you got
Mm-hmm.
7 cubs, and you had 2 lions there. Then you get 2 more lions come and depose those other 2 lions. So those other 2 lions get run off or killed or something, and the 5 lionesses are there and the 7 cubs. What happened to the 7 cubs?
They something to where they're no longer around.
What you're an adult. What does that mean? Something
They
over there.
kill them.
What do you think happens?
Do they kill the cubs?
I'm asking. Do you think they raised them?
Probably not.
What do the mothers do with them?
I don't know.
Okay, this is the unfortunate part. We've allowed women to not even understand nature. In nature, the cubs will be killed because every time the new lion comes in, he has to bring food. He's not going to feed another lion's kids. This is how it is in nature. So, and the mothers sit back and like, well, and you know what happens when the lion cubs are disposed of? They go in the heat. What I'm trying to get you to understand, ma'am, is you want to be a taken care of woman. right?
Hmm.
What does your what does your baby daddy do?
He lives. Well, I'm from Michigan, so he's still in Michigan.
Hmm.
So I mean, he
What do you
works.
do for a living?
He works for the like the big three. It's in the automotive industry.
Okay, is he high ranking or is he on the factory?
No, he's in the factory.
Right. Is he on child support?
No, it's no. We're not. We don't have anything court ordered.
So, ma'am, this is going to sound harsh, but this sounds crazy. You want
Mm.
a man to come get you later in life, used with somebody else's kid, and put you up like a traditional wife, and the man you made a baby for ain't even doing nothing. That would make no sense for a man.
Mm.
And he can't even get a child out of you?
But what if it's like an older guy? He has his own children.
I
Do you
would.
not?
It doesn't matter. Maybe he still wants more of his own. Maybe he does. But here's the thing again. Why is she coming to the table like she has the leverage? No, I don't want to have any more kids. And he should just accept it. And I'm gonna get the older guy and he's gonna accept me for not wanting any more kids. And that's that. I put my foot down. He can go somewhere else. You aren't special. And this is what they're failing to realize. They believe that they're so special that they could go in and tell a man that wants children, which most do. Of course, there are a small group of men that don't. But again, if they're successful making over $250,000 a year and they don't want children, why would they want yours? Why would they want any extra? Just go get the woman with no kids so there's less responsibility and there's less things to worry about. And you guys have more of a open and free schedule. They aren't gonna pick the one with the children. They just can't understand this.
I'm older. I'm older, and I don't deal with single mothers. I
Mm.
got my own children. I would not take care of your child. I got,
I swear this is my first time reacting to this, and this is exactly what I just said. Exactly. Tell him, Kevin.
plenty of young women out there with no kids. First off, the fact that you had, I mean, if you want the honest truth, the fact you had a child is a severe mark against you. Because that means you don't make good decisions. Then I'm going to go vet the man who you had a child by. And if he ain't at least on my level, we got nothing to talk about. I'm not going to raise a lesser man's child. Bottom damn line. I am not going to bring you around my colleagues, friends, country club, this and that, and be dragging some bastard around from somebody else, because that's what the kid is called. And because if I did, they would ask, "Hey, you got married? You got a wife? Okay. Hey, girl, who's your ex-husband? Oh, I wasn't married. Oh, okay. Well, where's your child? Oh, he's a okay. So this is a doctor. This is a lawyer. This is an Indian chief. This is a pharmacist. This is a business owner. This is a this or this. And what is your child's father? He's a oh okay. And you just sitting up in the suburbs, not paying any bills. You've been looking at too many Instagram.
But
They
I
don't.
know some women who are well, not married, but they're in relationships with
Yes, that's
somebody
right,
and
ma'am. And
they have
understand,
children.
understand. They'll deal with you. They'll have sex with you. They won't marry you. That's one of the things I talk about on this show. High value men look at legacy, and it doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make you bad. But what I'm saying is, you're talking about marriage, and you're not even gonna. Okay, let's see if we can put it this way. Do you know how to cook well?
Yes.
Do you have a recipe book?
No. I
I
use
mean,
like online, and then I learned recipes from my grandmother. She used to
okay.
make.
Can you bake?
Yes.
All right. How tall are you?
5'4".
Dress size?
My what?
Dress size?
Small.
No, no. Dress size. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12.
Oh, 4.
Okay. All right. How many tattoos do you have?
A lot.
You have any piercings?
Yes, but not visible.
Okay.
Just like my ears.
All right. Is this your natural hair? Is it a wig?
No, I moved to Arizona, So I have not found a stylist yet. But in Detroit, I wore my natural hair all the time. I got my hair done every week.
But is it how long is your natural hair?
Like to my shoulder.
Okay. So man, this is where women start to get upset. I don't know. You're a high school graduate, right?
Mm.
You have lots of tattoos, piercings, someone else's child, 31, he's a 10-year-old, and now it sounds like you want to be Sally Homemaker and have a man pay all the bills. Why is that okay? If your son became an attorney, right? Or something like
I don't
that.
have a son.
Huh?
But yeah,
Say what?
I don't have a son. It's a
Daughter?
girl. But go
Okay.
ahead, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Well, let me just switch anyway. If you had a son,
Hmm.
and he had to go become an attorney and making $250,000 a year, would you want him bringing home a woman who had a child by another man? Would you want him bringing you home?
Well, I wouldn't have a problem with that, honestly. But again, I'm biased because I am a single mother, and I think it's
But you
more
would
so
want, but
about.
you would want your, but you would want your son out of all the women he could pick from to pick a woman who has a child and doesn't want to have a child. That's what you want for your child.
I wouldn't see somebody with a child as a negative, though.
But that's the
But
problem.
I,
It is, man. But that's the problem. That's the problem. It is. It is a big negative. And the fact that you ladies don't see, you look at your children and you love your children and you don't
right.
see it lowering your value. I see this across YouTube all the time, and it's delusion, man.
But I wouldn't mind a man who has children, though.
But the difference is we got to take care of them. A man's not getting a kid from you. See, what you're not doing is what are you bringing to the table except expectations? A man can't even get a child from you. So it's not like that's the deal. And then he's taking care of another child. That's a double negative.
So, in terms
Could you,
of,
let me ask you this? In, could your husband discipline your daughter?
yeah, my husband, yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Could he whoop her?
my husband, yes.
Okay. Then and your daughter comes home and she's mad at your husband and she say he did XYZ. See, you ladies don't realize what you're asking for, man. You're asking for a man who has resources to put and means to put all that at risk. You may be a perfectly lovely woman, man, but it comes down to what are you bringing to the table that's better than other women with no children or women who may have a child and they want to give that man a kid. Your case is laden with. I don't see it moving. I don't, especially not wanting to work. I don't know where they make y'all at like this. I don't. Where'd y'all grow up thinking this was make sense?
I wouldn't mind. Like I definitely plan to work. Like I don't have no problem. I would never rely on someone
You
100%
said you
to
didn't
take
want to
care of
have
my
to work to
child.
pay significant bills. You said you didn't
Yeah, I
want.
didn't want
I
to.
asked
I don't want to like
what percentage
pay
of the
rent
family
and
financial load do you want to have to be responsible for? None. You said you want somebody making a 200. I know what you said, ma'am. And the
right,
reality is, you don't want to have the financial pressure. If you work or not work, you don't want it to impact the family in any way.
right.
That's the reality, ma'am. Were you raised with this? Were you raised with in a family like this?
Yes, both my mom and dad are married, still
Okay.
married.
Okay.
But both my parents work.
Okay.
My
But,
dad,
but both your
they,
parents worked, but your mom worked.
mhm.
But why don't you think you should have to? Why don't you want to have to work?
Her money was put towards like savings and like little stuff that she
I
wanted to
don't.
do.
But she
But
worked.
yeah,
How many
but
siblings do
you
you
asked
have?
about
How
paying
many
the
siblings do
significant
you
amount of
have?
the
How many
bill.
siblings do you have?
Two other sisters.
Thank you. Your father got three kids out of your wife, out of your mom.
Yes.
Ma'am, you're not this person. You're not this person. And unfortunately, this is a good conversation because it shows the damage that this Disneyification has done to the black community. The reality is this, man. You're a high school graduate who had a baby at 20 for a factory worker. If you were an average looking woman, you would not be asking for all this. It is unreasonable. That is why you cannot find a husband. You can find people to date. You'll find people who have sex with you that hook up. But as far as putting a ring on it, absolutely not. Not the kind of men you're making the kind of money you're talking about.
Okay, so in terms of solutions,
Lower your
you're
standards to match who you are.
okay. So what do you think that is? So if I don't want to have
Okay.
either
All right.
have more kids
Here's how we
or
do this. Here's how we do this. What would
okay,
you rank your looks on a scale from 1 to 10? Fresh face out of the shower, your natural hair, and you can't use 7.
8.
You put okay. I put Beyonce around an 8, Kelly Rowland around a 9, Rihanna 10. You put yourself around Beyonce level.
Okay, Beyonce's an 8, then 6.
Okay. I give you a 6. I give you a 6. You're cute. Cute
Mm.
is one step above average. And according to you, you're dress size 4. You weigh about what? Approximately. What did you weigh the last time you weighed yourself?
165, 170.
165, 170? No, that ain't a dress size 4. You ever been a dress size 8?
I can go in my closet. All my dresses say small though.
Okay, so if you're 5'4", 180 pounds, you weigh more than a man at your height. I'm the image consultant. I know women's sizes. I used to do fashion merchandise. Unless you are an H cup, you're not 30 pounds of breast. And the women I date deal with 5'4", 125 pounds. And I know what it looks like all the time. You 50 pounds more than that. That's 8.
Mm.
So that's already, you're too big.
So I just
So,
had like a significant weight loss. So I'm getting like skin
okay.
removal and I'm going through this whole
But see,
process.
that's the fact that you got to do all that when your
Mhm.
competition is already that with no kids should let you know. You got to go through transformation to get to what we already want. And they got no baby. And you got a whole grown person. Man, you're a 6 and you're below average in your body. So that puts you right about average. You will be good to get a man making $50,000 a year, and you will work for the rest of your life. And that's a good deal. 72% of mothers in this country work full or part time. Your mother worked, and your father got 3 kids out of it. The problem is, you ladies ask for far too much, and you massively overestimate your sexual marketplace value. If you were a vehicle, you'd be a Honda. Reliable,
So
good,
if you're
reliable,
saying
not insulting. It's good, reliable, but you use Honda. Go ahead. What am I asking? What are you asking?
so you're saying if I at best I would get a man who makes 50K and I would still have to work for the rest of my life and I'm already working for the rest of my life and don't want to have any more kids, then do you think it's even beneficial to be in that situation?
And then who's going? Okay. See. So and let me say this, audience. See, this is what. And I'm gonna say this to the audience, not necessarily you. See, audience. This is what's been marketed to women. If a man can't pay all your bills, then what's the use of having a man? Let me ask you this then, man. Before I answer that question, from 25 to 65, if you just make 50,000, if you make $50,000 a year, which is $20,000 more than the average woman, black woman. If you made that $50,000 and you got a cost of living raise every year of 3%, and if you stack $200 savings a month for 40 years, upon retirement at age 65, and you have a life expectancy to 85, you will need $2.9 million to live that last 20 years. At $50,000, you will have a $750,000 shortfall, meaning you won't have enough money to last the rest of your life. Where do you plan on getting the money to provide you for the rest of your life if you never get married and you only have one income? Uncle Sam won't have it. The government won't have it. There will be no Social Security. There are no homeless shelters. There are no Herculean methods. You, there is nothing to go to get it from. Whatever you thought would be out there doesn't exist. How you gonna live in your elder years?
Right now, I actually have two full-time jobs in like an online business. So
Okay.
I'm prepared to
Do you
save
make in excess
anyway because I
do you make in excess of $80,000 a year?
no, not yet.
Okay, ma'am, it doesn't matter what you have. I gave you an example of 50,000, and that person is childless. Marriage is not an option for you, ma'am. It is a requirement. You need another income, and you need to get another income, and then be grateful that somebody would be willing to marry you with a kid and deal with you. Because the reality is, when you hit 65, you're either going to be living in a cracker box, eating what you got to stretch money, deciding to pay your rent or your medication, because the government won't do it. They won't have the money. And see, the problem is women in your age range have been sold this fantasy about marriage to where you're only looking at men who are this and that, and then you put these outrageous things on it. I'm not going to have a kid, this and that. And man, you don't have those options. And you just said it. You had a massive weight loss. How much weight did you lose? You say 40, 50, what?
150.
Oh, you got to be out. Have you been trolling me? That's pretty good if you have though. You lost 150. You were 300 pounds.
I was.
Holy shit! I swear to God, y'all, I didn't pay her. I swear to God, I didn't pay her. I did not pay her. I swear to God, I did not pay her. I swear to God, I did not pay her. Man, a 300-pound high school graduate with a baby.
Well,
What?
I'm not
What?
300. This is my question. So if you're
Man, but before you, I don't care. But before you ask your question, I'll answer your question. But I got a real serious question. Where the hell do you get off having that kind of expectation? Below average.
I'm not 300 pounds now. I lost a significant amount of weight. I've done a lot of work on myself physically and spiritually and mentally. So we talked before about like pretty privilege and how it just gets you in the door and the type of person you are, who you are, what you bring to the table with, you know, was what was going to get you a relationship or keep you a man or whatever. So I don't think the fact that I used to weigh 300 pounds would make me any
How
less
long
of
ago did you
who
weigh 300 pounds?
4 years ago.
Man, that ain't. Oh, a 300-pound woman who was the high school graduate with tattoos and piercings, and your baby daddy's a factory worker. You are the definition of average at best. You got a cuter face than average women. But I said you're 6. You put yourself up at an 8. Your standards are outrageous. So it doesn't matter if you're not 300 pounds now. You still got 300-pound leftover skin and all that stuff. But your attitude, you're not mean, you're not combative, but you're entitled. Like you're a princess, and the man supposed to go out and become a top 3% man. to get an X 300-pound baby mama. That makes absolutely no logical sense.
And what's crazy about this is before she knew she could not even ask for half of the things she's asking for. But because she pays someone to do a bit of surgery and she goes ahead and, eventually over time get the excess skin removed surgically, like she said, trust me, this is going to go up even more. You see the hair, see the eyelashes, you see the death stare. And like Kevin said, the delusion is off the rails.
Except online. I'm gonna ask you a serious question. Have you ever had any kind of counseling up there?
I have.
You,
And I've had skin removal procedures already.
but
And
ma'am, it
I've
doesn't
been
matter.
to
Okay, but
therapy.
ma'am, that's okay. The physical gets you in the door,
Right.
but you are far too entitled for who you are. Why do you think, as an average woman, you need an above average or a high earning man when you're
Because like you
made?
said, the looks aren't everything.
Yeah, they're not. But why? Okay, what does that mean to you? Looks aren't everything.
I think like high school graduate means that I can't hold. It doesn't mean I can't hold a conversation or I can't
I
hold my
never
own.
said that, but I'm just saying. I'm saying what I'm saying. I'm not saying you couldn't hold your own. What I'm saying is there's no additional secondary education. So you're wanting a man who has to go get all that. What kind of men make in excess of $200,000? It's typically not a blue collar guy unless he owns something.
Yeah, like realtors. Like I've worked with
That's white collar.
high earning. Yeah,
But man, that's a salesperson. That's a different. This is fascinating because I'm trying to ask a realistic question.
okay.
Your mother and father were middle class people.
Mm.
Where did you get this Fresh Prince of Bel Air mindset? You got a child at 20. Why do you think you should have a man who arguably is low grade rich? $250,000 is a lot of money. That's earning 6 times what the average black man earns. Why?
I wouldn't. To me,
Mm-hmm.
or just from the people around me, I think that like who I am or my personality or the type of woman that I am, is deserving of that. Even though I do have a child, just like you said, money is
It
a
deserve,
like.
ma'am. You have is deserving of that. What does that mean? Your personality, meaning you're pleasurable to be around.
Yeah, like even though you say I have an entitled attitude, I'm a princess. I think that there are. You said a guy could find someone who's younger that
Yeah.
doesn't have kids,
Yes.
but that doesn't mean that they're grounded or like you could find a
Ma'am, you're not
24 year
grounded in
old that
you're
has
not grounded
kids.
in but ma'am, I'm trying to be as okay. You may be nicer than Bonquisha and Kilolo, but that does not mean you're the kind of okay. Let me also just put it this way: you're not just competing against black women at that level. You're competing against all women. You're competing against the women that are around that man. When that man is in a room, when that man is in a room, you need to look at the women that are going after him. They don't have a bunch of hand tattoos and piercings. You may be nice, man, and agreeable, and you may be better than your friends. But if I take you into a room with these men, they're not going to look at you like they're going to look at other women. You would be fun. You would not be wife. As soon as they hear you're 31 and a 10-year-old, you're out. That's it. That's over. They're not going to do that. It doesn't matter that you just went to high school because going to college just means that you're around the other wives and they got something to talk about. Like it or not, social class comes into it and they do look down on women who are just high school graduates. Like it or not, they do. Unless you come from a long line of wives, the wives will be like, oh, okay. They're gonna look down on you. I'm not gonna lie. And then they're gonna ask who the child's father is. All this matters is social class, and we got to have this conversation. I'm going to do a broadcast next week on octane levels because we don't talk about social class enough in the black community. But I will tell you that I've had more conversations with women who will tell you that they either didn't match up to their boyfriend's social class or the men didn't match up to the woman's. It matters in the black community. It matters everywhere. And I'm not understanding why a woman who had a child and who weighed as much as you did and who the child's father is, why you set your sights so exorbitantly high. You set your Does your father make $250,000 a year?
Yes, he has a full-time career and he owns multiple businesses.
Okay. And did he make that amount of money at your age?
Probably not.
No. And reason people catching in, this is a woman who doesn't want to have any additional children.
Yeah, that's why initially I was saying I was open to dating older or
Older doesn't mean fool, man. Okay, I'm trying to be as nice as I can, but still, I'm an older man. The women I deal with, take me out of it. The men that I know age gap date, women who are 10 years younger than them minimum. They don't date baby mamas. Baby mamas are not in the equation. And the guys that do have children,
right,
still prefer not to date baby mamas because they don't want to pay another bill. That child is a bill. And you don't really want to have to work. So that means you're going to be giving that bill to your man. What are you bringing to the table that's better than Brenda or Tammy or Anu or Maylene or miscellaneous black woman? What are you bringing to the table that's better than all these women to where a man has to pay for another man's child and can't have one from you? You got to answer that in the marketplace. Your standards are your standards, fine, but you are shooting far past your S&B. Your S&B is average. And that's giving you an adjustment for a more pleasant face, but your body is below. So that negates, that averages out to average. But here's the problem. If even if we gave you an average of 5, right? If you watch my broadcast, a kid knocks you down by 2 points. That puts you what? At 3. 4 on a good day, but that's below average. And I'll round this out. Have you ever been engaged?
No.
Okay. It's the longest relationship you ever had with anybody.
You said what is the longest relationship?
Longest.
7 years.
Is that your child's father?
It is.
All right. And what age is that was that over?
27.
And why didn't you guys marry?
He wasn't faithful. He was like dishonest.
How much was he making a year annually? About?
I couldn't say 30, 40,000.
He's making $15 to $20 an hour?
Yeah, about.
And now all of a sudden you think you should just jump up. to $100
Okay, this
an
is
hour.
this is one thing. Like when I was bigger and I was making more and I was paying bills and everything like that, I like was accepting less and settling because I was
You
like,
were
well, I'm
accepting
bigger.
what you
I
were.
have
You were accepting what you were. It's not less. It's what you are.
But what I weigh is not what I am.
Yes,
So
it
if
is.
I'm
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's what you ladies keep saying. Yes, it is, ma'am. You can't. You cannot. Men on that level aren't checking for you.
Exactly. And men are visual. And why is that part always negated? Like, yeah, I'll just come along and look however I look and you're just supposed to accept me. Men are visual. We care about that. That man couldn't even pick you up. He couldn't even lift you off the ground. But you somehow think that was attractive to him. Insane. Or men wouldn't care about that.
Not for wife. You ain't been engaged to one. Are you even dating one seriously?
well, I just moved here, so I've been on a few dates, but I haven't seriously been out
Okay, and where'd you? And how long you been here?
since the beginning of this year.
Since January.
Mm.
7 months in Arizona,
Hmm.
Phoenix, Tucson, Scottsdale.
Phoenix area, like North Phoenix.
If you were that chick, you'd have had him by now. They are there. You're in denial. You've left your home. These men exist in Phoenix, Tucson, Scottsdale. Scottsdale in particular. Man, at this pace, if you don't adjust your standard to match who you really are and stop talking about settling, and you need to right size this. And I need
Okay.
you to hear something. And it's going to sound harsh, but it's going to be some good advice. The man you're talking about will be settling for you because he's taking on you and another man's child with the knowledge he won't get one. That man is settling for you. So the way you got this is you got a man who's up here at a 9 level and you down here at a 3 or 4 level, talking about what you deserve. When you really should have a man at about a five level, maybe 6, and be happy to get him. This won't work. I don't think. I mean, if you're being honest with who you are, man, I don't think the kind of man that actually fits you, you would treat them any. I don't think you would really appreciate them because you sound like you think they're settling. But I've said this, and I'm gonna get to the next person. Thank you for being respectful, but man, I often tell women, your baby daddy is your limit. That's as high as you get. That's who you made a baby for. That's who you gave the highest honor a woman can give a man, and that's who you're with for 7 years. You cannot make up for mistakes of your youth in your when you're older, more used, and somebody's kids. That would be a horrible deal. And the only man that would do that would be a man who has no counsel for anybody. Because if he had friends, they would say, "Do not do this." If he has brothers, they would say, "If I had a friend that was in this, I would." Hell no, no. And it's not because you may not be a nice person. It's just a bad deal. But thank you for being polite. Have a nice night.
Man, what a video. Kevin, surgical as always, checkmating as always, and delivering nothing but pure logic. Please leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you guys haven't already, and turn on post notifications so you guys will be alerted when we upload more videos just like this one. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Judge Joe Brown, happy to have you on the platform, my man.
Well, the judge is in the house. All right, go for it.
Yes, indeed. Happy to have you, my man. I mean, my followers, man, been begging me, to have you on the platform. So, hey, finally made it happen, man.
All right, are we R-rated, general audiences, or X-rated, or what?
Oh, go for it, man. Be you, man. Go for it.
All right.
So the first thing I want to ask you, right, is about Sonya Massey. How you feel about that incident? You seen the video?
I've seen several of the videos. From the videos, of course, with the preamble of you're innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, there doesn't seem to be anything defensible in that. His body language is very circumspect rather. He seems to be somebody who is possessed of a lot of fear, and he also seems to be somebody who's been craving the opportunity to shoot someone. It's been my experience doing what I do that killing somebody for the first time is real hard for most people, but it gets easier. And for some people, it gets way too easy. Some people crave killing somebody so badly, it's just a lust almost, that they will seize any opportunity to do so, even if it's without any legitimate excuse. He asked her to take the water off of the stove. She takes it off. What she says is a biblical reference, but it's no threat to him. It's what old folk in the country used to say when they wanted water to stop boiling. The inference was that the devil was in it, and that made it boil. It was almost just a common saying. So he didn't get that, but he put himself in a real trick bag. They've got a good second-degree murder case there. They charged him with murder one. I don't know if that'll stick. You have to have a calculation involved when you have a murder one, but they charge jury saying the intent to be formed in an instant, the premeditation, the thinking about doing it, the rational and logical analysis. Second degree murder is differentiated from first degree murder because second degree is classically defined as a crime of passion. A homicide induced by passion that was caused, well, homicide reduced in the heat, were committed in the heat of passion induced by provocation sufficient to cause the defendant to act in irrational fashion. Manslaughter is when the provocation is sufficient to cause an ordinary person to act in an irrational manner. So, I don't know. First degree murder used to be defined as wanton and premeditated murder with malice or forethought. Now, a lot of places have something similar to intentional and deliberate murder. In other words, you intend to commit the homicide, you're deliberate about it because you calculated and put your mind, I'm going to kill this person. It's not something that just arises spontaneously, though the amount of time it takes to come up with that calculated intent can be formed in an instant, they tell the juries and with the instructions. By the way, that's the long part of the law thing that they never, ever in a movie or TV program get into. I presided over many cases involving one form or another homicide. I think I tried as a defense lawyer 42 first-degree murder cases where they demanded the death penalty. None of my clients are on death row. But the deal is that the hard part for the judge is writing up the charges, because you have to read these charges to the jury, and to read the charges on a typical first-degree murder case is 6 to 8 hours worth of work to read them. So you never get that in a movie or a TV show. The judge is reading for 6 hours, and he has to reduce all that to writing, so the written item that he's reading from is in a jacket that the jury can refer to. Those are important because there's this thing in the law which has various ways of saying it. But, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are the judges of the law and the fact under the guidance of the court, and the court is the proper source from which you are to get the law. Now, if the judge charges the jury with the law wrong, case is going to be overturned on appeal because it is what it is, no matter how long it takes to bring that up. And I've seen that recently because a lot of the judges and the lawyers are relatively inexperienced in the practice of law. You get referred to a medical doctor by another one, and you walk into his office and you might see all the degrees on his wall, but then you find out he's never been an intern or a resident. You say, wait a minute, wait, you learned all this out of books? You've never had hands-on training? Well, you see a senior member of a law firm, it used to be he had hundreds of trials. You saw somebody that had been in the prosecutor's office, they had hundreds of trials, and they worked their way up. Same thing with being in the public defender's office. You see people now who are senior partners of a law firm. They've been out of law school not 15, 20, 25 years. They've been out 7 or 8, and they've had exactly 0 trials. You see people who have the slick ads, and they walk in with a lot of clients, and the judge knows that they have never tried a case. You've got people with reps on the national level for being civil rights lawyers. They settle a lot of cases, but they never tried one. So basically they're rookies and get low settlements, but nobody realizes it. You have judges, even on appellate courts, who have absolutely no experience. I'm thinking of one, and this started a while ago. The justice is a female. She graduated from law school, just turned 30, which is the minimum for being a judge in a lot of states when you're a trial judge and you have jury trials. She graduated from law school, passed the bar. 4 days after she passed the bar, she was sworn in as a judge of a circuit court with unlimited jurisdiction, and in 14 months some president appointed her as a federal court judge. So the biggest rookie in the courtroom that had never had a case, never had a client, was the judge over this particular division of federal court, and now this person is sitting on a court of appeals for the federal system. So that's just one example I'm personally aware of. You have a lot of situations where the practitioners of the profession are rookies and they don't know what they're doing. That even extends to an extent to the U.S. Supreme Court, where I'm somewhat disturbed at the lack of practical experience being displayed as it is on the U.S. Supreme Court. So many have just a little experience. But it is what it is, and I guess that's the way politics are being played now, because a lot of what you get is ideologically determined rather than competence in doing what you do.
So from your point of view, right, do you believe it's murder?
Yeah, it looks like straight up homicide case. I don't see any defense in it. But, you're presumed innocent until you're proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And I don't know what the rest of the case is. See, look. Here's another problem with that. Lack of experience in a different kind of way. Oh my God, we have to protect the children from the bullies, the police and the teachers and the parents. It's our duty to protect them. They never learn how to deal with it. A lot of them become cops because they want to test themselves and they've never had a fight. So they get ramped up and they don't know how to deal with it. Used to be by the time you got 25 years old, you'd had 8, 9, 10, 15, 20 fights growing up on the playground or on the neighborhood. And it was no big deal. You kind of knew how to handle yourself, what to expect. Now these guys are adrenaline flowing because they don't know what time it is because they've never had a fight. That includes cops. So you get people out there that may be mentally ill, and that's a growing thing, and they don't know how to handle it. They take it as a challenge. And driving around here in Memphis, I've had to stop 2 or 3 times. Hey, wait a minute. And everybody, the person the police has stopped and the cops, they know me. And I said, wait, back off. Your body language is like you getting ready to jack each other up. Are you ready to go there? And they don't even realize what kind of body language message they're going, like, I'm going to whip your behind. I'm taking you out. Like, okay. And do you realize what you're saying to each other? Back off a bit, unwind. And then see, you get this thing too, coming out of the military. It's different than it was. I think the actual combat experience of an infantryman or Marine in World War II in the Pacific was 19 days in hot combat, 36 in Europe. Nowadays, you've got a lot of people going back Gulf War One, and that's 30 some years ago. You have people who did a year in country, particularly since 2001, and they've been shot at. They've got IEDs, not for the 36 days, not for the 19, but a whole year. The other thing is in previous wars, the way things were done is the artillery did most of the casualty rendering. Somebody fired over there into the trees and the bushes and nobody saw anything. Nowadays, they have the optical sights and they put the red dot on somebody, squeeze the trigger and watch them drop. And then you've got even worse, what happens when they become accustomed to the idea they know they took somebody out because they saw it, rather than you shoot over there and when you find 5 or 6 bodies in the bushes and you don't know who shot them. The other thing is that's compounded by the ones that weren't in combat units but were in service units, and they wanted some of the action, so they lust to get a trophy on their den wall. And you've got a lot of police with that kind of thing. You've got a lot of women in this thing, and you expect the women to be badass like the guys, but they've never been in a fight, and that's not even the way they think. So they have to put themselves in the mindset, and it's not a pretty picture when you get through with what shakes out. Now, some women have a knack. Some female cops I know, they can get in a scene and diffuse the situation because they do that lady thing or that woman thing, and everybody calms down. It used to be, hey, man, watch your language, guys. Mama just walked in the room. Oh, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean any harm. And they play that, and it tones things down, but then you have the girl reel of the day and they go out there and they're worse than some of the guys. So it's a whole lot wrong with what's happening now, and you get a lot of tension built up, and we've had 50 years of glorification of dysfunction. The thug, the pimp, the hoe, the drug dealer, the burglar, the murderer, the thief, the bank robber, they become the protagonists and the heroes when you look at the movies and on TV. And the rap artistry, they glorify dysfunction, so everybody is ideating on this thing. It's not surprising when you put this mix all together in a real world that you don't get hell. But I mean, that's off the point slightly. But yeah, that was a bad situation. It did not look to be a good shoot.
Yeah, that was a terrible video, man. I think after he shot her, he made a comment saying kill shot. Then after that, he called her a B word. Yeah. Awful, man.
Real street. I've been out there. People, cops and the other folk, they call each other names. I mean, it calms down. MF, I'm going to take you out if you don't settle down. All right, man, all right, Reality check.
Yeah, that video was terrible, man. I hope, he go to prison for that, man. But I gotta ask you about Kamala Harris. How you feel about her? You a fan of hers?
She's a piece of sh. I was in California. She lacked professional competence, and she worked on it by hiking up her hemline when she needed influence rather than researching. I was out in California for 15 years doing my show when she was at her peak, and she had a reputation amongst the trial lawyers of being lazy. She just hike her skirt up and try to flirt, and she wasn't that good in the courtroom, if not pretty bad in the courtroom. So I'm not surprised at what she does. She's 60 years old, and I think listening to her word salad and the way she talks, I think she's got early onset dementia and also some problems with menopausal complications. That's that, you see, today is going to be tomorrow. So since it's going to be tomorrow, today we have tomorrow, which is why we are now. Like, what did you say? They have something in mind, but they cannot cognate getting all the way through it, which is why she's famous for this word salad garbage, and she doesn't make a bit of sense. I think since she's only 60, she's actually on a worse track than Biden was. Biden is 20 some years older than her, and he has been senile for a long time. Now, about 5 or 6 years ago, when did they start ramping up to do this? 2019. Okay, I was saying Biden has been a failure his whole adult career, a second rate, third string player. He's in the game, so he wants to make a name for himself. I considered him for years poor trailer park, urban trailer park trash. And he's a crook. He's a third stringer. Now, what I said he was going to do is he probably wants to claim fame for being the first person to see to it that a woman got to be president. And what I predicted, I'm slightly wrong on it, was that he was going to get in, try to get elected, and if he got one term, try to get elected for a second one. And then halfway through his term, when he had served 2 years, to retire or resign in her favor. So under the 22nd Amendment, what happens is she can serve for the final 2 years for somebody and then be elected twice more. So that woman would be able to serve 10 years, second only to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who got elected to 4 terms before they put the amendment in place so you couldn't. Now, that said, I think, and my major at UCLA was political science. My analysis was is they picked the weakest somebody they could as a figurehead, somebody who had some apparent minority status, which she does not. And what goes on is that you get her, everybody that is everybody would be afraid to go against her because of what she can pass herself off as. And then you get somebody that's easy to control because she's lazy, because she is becoming incoherent, and because she's always tried to do the casting couch to get where she wants. Now, the problem is that'll get somebody to a certain level quickly, but you can't get past that level if you don't have competence and talent. So my thing about it is if I'm crude about it, in this city years ago, I used to represent a whole bunch of pimps and hoes, and I know a hoe when I see one. And I say this, I don't care, women, you do what you want to do if you want to have recreational sex, but when you do the casting couch or anything else for professional purposes to get paid or advance, you a hoe. And she's old hoe. And the problem is what is she supposed to do? Somebody, one of her sycophant slaves comes up and unwraps her in a carpet naked at Putin's feet, and he says, oh yeah, I'm Julius Caesar. He said, no, I got better stuff here already. Plus, I don't want you anyway, you old woman. Get on up, you know. Or Xi Jinping, is he supposed to be impressed? She's doing word salad. Well, we're here today because China and the U.S. are here today, and that's why we have to agree on what we're doing here today. Like, fool, what did you just say? You know, did you say anything? And I've never seen such a salacious mess as I've seen out of her. I think of One West Bank. I had some pretty good properties out in California at one point in time. And I know I had 3 neighbors who had good properties. It was in a place called Ojai, California. And they got caught up about 15, 16 years ago, like a lot of people did in that mortgage bundling scam stuff that was going on. And there was a bank called One West Bank responsible for it, which was owned by George Soros. The Mnuchin that you have out of the Obama administration was Mnuchin, who was the CEO of One West Bank. Well, there were approximately 1,200 counts of indictments returned against Mnuchin and One West Bank in various counties in California. Well, Mnuchin and Soros financed and arranged and sponsored Kamala to run for Attorney General of California. They got her elected. She got in, and using the authority she had, she promptly consolidated all 5,200 counts and dismissed them. And a couple of weeks later, Soros sold One West Bank for $4.2 billion. So after that, they got together and got her finance and got everything organized and made the connections for her, and she got elected to U.S. Senator. Willie Brown made the initial contacts and arrangements so she could get elected as district attorney for San Francisco. She didn't do a very good job. She had a reputation for giving out the stiffest sentences in the United States of America for simple possession of marijuana in San Francisco, for God's sakes. But it was only to young black men. She's not a parent, never had any children, but she went off on this campaign to lock parents up, some of whom actually were shown to have dropped their children off at the school, but they played hooky, so she was putting them in jail. I know my in-laws, now late in-laws, because they're dead, and their fine daughter that I was married to, we were divorced. She got a whole lot of money, but anyway, out of me. What wound up happening was there was a liquor store they like to patronize on the way home, and it was a good liquor store, but it got held up a lot, so Kamala's solution was not go get the crooks, but close down the liquor store so nobody would be troubled by it. See, that kind of philosophy, or you've got a serial killer who's got 6 victims, and the families are writing protest letters to her, not hurry up and do something, not why you giving the guy such a light deal, is why don't you let this man plead guilty to life without parole instead of delaying it for 7 years, trying to make political hay out of it. I was caught up in a thing where this woman who was supposed to be a financial specialist wound up embezzling a lot, $1.5 million from me, about $15 million from some other black celebrities. And most of it was in the San Francisco area, not LA where I was. She consolidated the cases up there in San Francisco, took 5 years to resolve it, let her plead out not the $15 million of embezzlement, but $35,000. The sentence was 5 years in the penitentiary, 4.5 years suspended, 5 years probation. The woman wound up sitting on a bench outside Sybil Branch, which is the women's detention facility in LA County, for 5.5 hours. That's all the time she served, made no restitution, and la-di-da, I'm through with it now, I don't care, on her behalf. Like, where's our money? You know, what did you do here? You didn't even consult with us. You did this on a surprise basis. That's $15 million gone. What happened? It's the kind of thing she would do, see. So it's like, that was not a good professional performance. And then she was everybody's favorite Hindu Indian prosecutor and attorney general and senator, and now she becomes black. But, you know, I met her daddy, fine gentleman, Professor Harris. And the problem with her being black is Professor Harris says he's Caucasian, mixed Irish and Hindu. He doesn't have any black ancestors, but his Irish ancestors owned a lot of slaves in Jamaica and had them to work on plantation. So if mama is on the birth certificate listed as a Caucasian. Daddy says he's a Caucasian Hindu and has no black ancestors. How did she get to be black? Now, a little side story. When I had my show, let's say this has been 26 years ago, I had two beautiful women that I thought were sisters on the show. And they laughed one time when we all went to a happy hour and said, "You think we're black, don't you?" "Yeah, aren't you?" "No, we're Hindu." One of them said, "My mother's a Hindu Brahmin caste, and my father was Hindu warrior caste. He took an oath to the family to protect her. They fell in love, eloped, and now we got a death warrant on us. We can't go back to India." So, yeah, and then they gave me two books. The guys were Hindu, and they were very dark, but they cut their hair off close, grew beards, and started dressing and acting black, and they got financial aid. One of them, I think, went through medical school that way, masquerading for being black. Somebody else did it, so she went to Howard. And by the way, she told one big lie when she was talking about she got bust because of something Biden did when she was running against him. Well, the yearbook that she put out there that you can still get online from her high school in Canada shows she went from kindergarten through 12th grade in Canada, never went to school in the United States of America. She was born, by the way, in the same hospital that my ex-wife was born in, the same 12-month period, and my late mother-in-law was in fact a pediatric nurse in that hospital when Kamala was born. And the birth certificate that she has is interesting because the confusion comes from a mistake. On the birth certificate, it lists the mother's race as Caucasian, national origin India, and religion Hindu. For the father, it does not list national origin. It does not list religion. It does not list anything about that, but where it says race, they put national origin in Jamaica by mistake. Now, if you've ever been to Jamaica and you go over to St. Elizabeth Parish, you see all the high, bright, and white that live in Jamaica. So I've got a good friend retired from law enforcement. He has a white wife, blonde hair, blue eyes, but she was born in Jamaica. Her parents were born in Jamaica. One's blonde and blue eyed, the other one's red-haired and gray eyed. And they happen to be related to the King of England because they're aristocrats in England, but they were born in Jamaica. So if you go over there, you see people from Hong Kong, Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, Kenya, South Africa, you name it. It's part of the British Commonwealth, and nobody needed a passport, and you could just go in and out. So it's not unusual. You're not black just because you are from Jamaica, and they have a whole lot of white people that never left, and their ancestors owned a lot of slaves. The Maroons went up into the hill country and got themselves free back in the 1840s, but you know, other than that, it is what it is in Jamaica. So just because you're from that country does not mean you are of the black race. So the problem is why don't you go get your daddy to give you an affidavit that you have a black ancestor? And since the only possible claim you have is through your great-grandmother, who he says was a Hindu house servant that just happens to be swarthy, where'd you get your blackness from? See, you're faking it again. And I say this after 50 years of experience, the worst human beings you will ever find are career prosecutors. Something slimy about them. They are so turned off by humanity and everything else. They don't care. They're trying to win the game. It is just play to them. They don't give a damn about the people they represent. They just want to win. So they lie, cheat, steal to win the game. And that brings up the other thing, where the Supreme Court of California ordered her to produce the evidence that was exculpating to somebody sitting up on death row that she had hit. They did that over and over and over again with her hiding this evidence. Now, there are exceptions to this rule with career prosecutors, but if you ever want to sleazy somebody, find yourself a career prosecutor who's never done anything else but that until they have moved up. Now, there have been people like Thomas Dewey, who was a career prosecutor. He got Lucky Luciano, the gangster that set up the mob as a syndicate, a business. He got him and became governor of New York and then an unsuccessful candidate for president twice. You have people like that, and you got Kamala, who was a career prosecutor. And that's essentially all she's done outside of moving directly over into politics. They tend to be crooks. They're not good people. It's like I used to, on the bench, it's like, excuse me, can you approach both of you? Do you have any character? Do you realize what you just did? Well, I mean, no, we can't have that. That is not going to be allowed up in here. You do it again, and the court's going to see to it that you get a 10-day paid vacation courtesy of the sheriff. No. See, and that's what I'm looking at. She wants to be chief administrative officer, but she's never been the boss over anything. She was nominally with the Attorney General's office, but you've got all of these egos with all of these people with doctorate of laws who've taken the bar exam, and every one of them in there could run against you in an election and be your boss, and is as qualified technically as you are to run the place. So she's never been the boss in charge of something where she dictated, because what she did in San Francisco and when she got over California is she essentially had somebody else doing it, and she was just a political figurehead. So when you come into this situation here, Putin, Russia, Ukraine, those are serious things. They have a lot of nukes. You've got Xi Jinping, and China's got one hell of a huge army, air force, nukes, computer systems, and so on. What is your experience in international diplomacy? You got made the representative of the country to handle the foreign affairs. You failed so badly they yanked you out when you were actually the boss in charge. The borders are, you just complete abject failure to that. Your only appearance down there was to sit in a chair in the desert while they interviewed you, trying to be cute, flashing your pearls, and you didn't do your job. So you're talking now about you want to legitimize 20 million aliens who've come in here and see that they get fast-tracked so they can vote and become part of the whole process. What are you doing? Whose jobs are you taking away? What about the people that actually lined up to go through the rules? I want to become a citizen, so I take the courses. See, nobody's checking. They've got an outbreak of hepatitis. They got an outbreak of measles. HIV is ramped up. They've got all kinds of things. They've got problems with strains of tuberculosis that have no cure. So people before they come down with it, you have to put them on prophylactics for the rest of their life so they don't get a fatal illness that nobody can cure. So nobody is running the medical test. Nobody is checking to see what penitentiary they got out of. And something that is pretty real is a movie. You remember Al Pacino in Scarface? They dumped all their penitentiaries and they're over here. You got all of these Latino gangs that have now infiltrated. You've got Ukraine. You've got Gaza. You've got people that hate the fact that they don't have technology to shoot down a B-1B bomber. So what do? They just walk across the damn border. Nobody's checking them. Somebody is giving them free transportation without even vetting their luggage. And in the luggage, they have military-grade explosives, which over the last several years, I'm sure they put in various building structures, hospitals, subways, and everything else. And on command, they flip the switch, and 911 looks like a Boy Scout meeting. So what are you going to do about these things? Nobody's checking. You have a situation right now that has to be taken into context. Just about every major seaport is using these container removal cranes, these giant gantry cranes. They're made in the People's Republic of China. Nobody checked them, and now they went back and did, and there seem to be some things built into them that they can't remove. Don't know what the function is, but they appear to be communication devices. What the hell are those? You know, so you want to shoot down a B-1 bomber 56 miles from the southern border point where there is a huge illegal crossing. There is a U.S. Air Force base where 24 B-1 bombers stage out of. You can just surround a damn base with some RPGs and take a few of them out. We don't have but 24 of them that are operational, and some other was in long-term storage because we can't afford to operate the damn things. What are you supposed to do? That was your job. Did you do it? Did you handle it? No. So, they've got this thing where sometimes they promote people up. You fail at a job, but you got a rep, so they can't get rid of you, so they promote you. Like, for example, Halsey, Admiral Halsey. Bull Halsey, always charged off, was aggressive. Great in World War World War II, the first part of it. But there was a thing in the Philippines, well, not Philippines, Leyte Gulf. It was a disaster. The Japanese laid a decoy force out. He fell for the trap, took off with all of the warships, left the beaches totally unguarded, told nobody, and he should have been court-martialed. But because of his fame, they couldn't, so they wound up promoting him to 5-star admiral instead of court-martialing him and canceling him. So, they do this kind of thing. So it's not unusual. But I'm just saying, hey, if you're going to bring somebody in, bring in somebody that knows what the hell they're doing. Meanwhile, she had a little rally in Georgia. I think 86 people showed up. That was supposed to be interesting. And she had the nerve to call Vance unpatriotic. And he came back on a big time. He said, simplify, to serve, loyalty. I was in the Marine Corps over in the sand pile. And Trump took a bullet. What the hell have you done? And you want to call somebody out on the subject. See, it's hypocrisy. But you see, I did this because I did what I did, and that's what I did, which is because that's why I did it. Hey, what the hell did you just say? Do you realize what you said? Do you know?
And I want to backtrack to a comment you made earlier about the casting couch. So that's true? Like, because I always heard this rumor that she slept her way to the top. That's true?
She did. She's old. She's 60 years old. Look, if you want to find out about it, go online to the LA Times morgue. They used to have it so for a fee, you could get them to pull articles. They've been reporting on her for 30-some years. She's in her 20s, and Willie Brown took her up as his mistress. There was a medical firm that dealt with San Francisco. He got her a 15-hour-a-week part-time job there, which she never showed up to, according to the Times. But they paid her $72,000 a year for 15 hours a week. And understand, she's in her 20s, which is 30-some years ago. That's big money now. So he got her promoted up, so she did 20 hours a week. Times reported she never showed up, but she got 120 grand a year. So he bought her a 750i BMW, which was the top of the line at the time. So he set her up with all of the connections to get her into politics. The Times did a thing about this thing she had allegedly with an NBA player to get a job with a big law firm, and then a thing they did on her with the assistant director for the district attorney's office to get on with them, and then Montel Williams, and then back to Willie Brown, and then the rest of the whole thing, and she winds up with a Hollywood lawyer type not long before she runs for senator. So, and she adopts his children. She doesn't have any of her own. Not saying it's a requirement, but it sure as hell helps, because I think the only two presidents of significance that didn't have children officially, George Washington and Andrew Jackson. And Andrew Jackson was a homicidal maniac. George Washington had enough by the slaves before he got sterile by disease. And the other three out of the five known ones, they weren't too good. They were has been, never was type. So I say that I know what I thought when I was a young man. Such things didn't make differences, but then I'd never had to be a parent. You never had to get up sick and go to work when you didn't feel like it, because you had the bills to pay. You never had to be reliable when you had other things to do. And having this legacy that you have to pass on, and not wanting to do anything that shames your grandchildren, because they do in fact exist and it's not hypothetical, that gives you a different perspective. So it's not an absolute requirement, but I think you really don't know how to have the dedication to the job if you have nothing to survive you. No immediate cause. Not saying that somebody can't be a good president without, but it's just, what's your stake in it? Do you want to leave a better America for your children and your grandchildren and your great grandchildren? Or is there nobody out there that you have an immediate selfish interest in?
Yeah, and she used to date Montel Williams, right?
Yeah, Willie Brown's too. She showed up here at a mayor's conference in Memphis some years ago. I spoke at the damn thing. She showed up here. She was with Willie Brown. She got mad at her sister, this black judge here, because she just went over to speak with him. She jumped up, leave, don't even look at him, leave it alone. The judge told her, ain't my type, don't worry about it. You know, I'm just trying to meet him. So, and I know, I mean, allegations, I wasn't there, but I've had at least two women that I've known who are married women, and they tell me essentially they almost slapped their husbands back when they were at Howard at a certain frat where somebody did a lot of second floor action, and they were angling on getting some, and it wasn't going to happen. You know, so you get this. Like I said, I'm not holding it against somebody because they did it for recreation, but you know, when you do the casting couch thing, that's a bad move. I know some women in Hollywood that did the casting couch and those who refused. The ones that got refused went further than the ones who did. The ones who did ramped up real quickly, but then they're a piece of ass. Everybody knows it, so they get passed around. And then, did it really have talent, or was it just they jump started their careers and then the lack of talent shows? Or did you have talent and do it the hard way? See, I mean, I hate to say it, but now, the other thing is I don't see any case law she made as an attorney or running the district attorney's office in a large city. I don't see in private practice pro bono when she, early years before she got into prosecuting, that made a difference. I don't see any innovation in law that she's responsible for. I don't see any reform of criminal justice that she could have done a whole lot about. I don't see any of that. So what did she do? I just see a long laundry list, page after page of wrong. So I'm not one of these people that is a fan of promoting somebody upstairs.
Yeah, that's real talk. And that's crazy, man, because I never heard that story before. So she tried to check a female because she thought she was trying to talk to her husband.
Yeah, I mean, and the woman was a judge she was talking to. I was there when that happened. It's like, dude, damn, who is that? I didn't know who she was, you know, I mean, but
From what you know, do you think she hate black men?
I think she's got a problem with them. Now, let's get back to the whole thing. I represented a lot of pimps and prostitutes. And the interesting thing about the prostitutes is they kind of had a weird attitude. You'd think somebody would enjoy doing what they did to earn the living, but they didn't care. It's like if the fool wants to pay for this here, I'll sell him all he wants. And they disdain men. And the funny thing is, strippers are even worse. If you have, and I represented a lot of strippers too, back in the 80s. And if you had 100 strippers, 90 to 95 of them are lesbians and they're giving away their money to their girlfriends. 5 or 6 out of the 100 will swing both ways, and you got 2 of them or 3 of them that are straight. One of them may have some pimp that's working her, but the pimps usually work the ones that are bisexual too. So you got maybe 1 out of 100 that puts her money together for her own purposes. And I know I was trying to help some out, so I set up an escrow account. And I was having where they worked with their permission and their written agreement to pay the money to me, and I was putting it in a bank account so they could accumulate something. Well, the first time I had a disbursement, this one woman was all on me. I thought she was accusing me of stealing money. She says, "You're lying, you trying to capture me." What the hell are you talking about? I don't have that much money. I said, "Yes, you do. You've been paying $29.95 a night for motel rooms. You run through $3,000 or $4,000 a weekend that you make on the 1st and 15th weekends of the month when these sailors get paid out here. You're bringing in, and this was 35 years ago, you're bringing in $5,000-6,000 a month, and you're giving it away. So I'm showing you that you've been accumulating 2 or 3 grand a month off of what you've been earning, and you say I'm trying to put money in your account so I can catch you and make you dependent. No, this is your money." See, they just don't get it because they have another mindset. And there's another thing there. How you work on that kind of person, and it's got to do with that hyena grin she's always giggling about, is there's low self-esteem that is going on. And the pimps can't turn a hoe out. She has been turned out by her family or her preacher. If you saw her grandmama or aunts and uncles, they say, "Yeah, we got a trial in the trip. She just so pretty. We know she gonna be slutting out and all these men's gonna be trying to get her." And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And what the girls do is when the person treats them like a dog, they say, "I deserve it. I'm wrong. I'm evil. Somebody needs to punish me." And they work on this kind of thing because people need have a craving to be treated as they perceive themselves. So when you have a negative image of yourself, you crave being treated in accordance with that negative image, and you want to be punished. So, oh, 3 people just got shot. Ha, 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 ha. They need gun control. Ah, like what the hell is funny about that? You know, it's kind of weird when you look at it. And I'm not a psychiatrist or clinical psychologist, but I know I've read enough psychiatric reports on clients and defendants in my courtroom over the years. And I used to, as a routine thing under Tennessee law allowing this, I'd have just about everybody I sentenced mentally assessed to see what was going on. It's interesting what comes out. It's not what people expect. And yeah, there is this low self-esteem, self-destructive thing that exists in a lot of people, particularly those who have professional positions where they cut too many corners and they get charged with embezzlement or extortion or something like that. And when you wind up seeing what motivates them, it's not healthy.
Yeah, but to backtrack to what I asked you earlier, right? Do you believe Kamala like black men?
No, I don't think she does. No, she doesn't. I mean, look at it. Most of these women that she locked up for the truancy problems were black women. Damn near everybody she was getting these horribly stiff sentences to as recommendations, they were young black men. What wound up happening, all of these people she withheld information on that could have exculpated them so they wouldn't have been found guilty, they were black men. She was particularly harsh in the way black men got treated when they came through the system that she had prosecutorial preeminence in. You see, she set up no programs to come up with work alternatives. She set up no programs to deal with rehabilitation. She set up no programs to deal with counseling. She set up no programs to offer alternatives to criminality. She just came down hard, hard, hard. And it's like, what did you get from her? You must have had a white client. Yeah, I did. Well, what do your black clients get? Not the same thing as the white ones. And you had enough black attorneys who had white clients to know the difference.
And one thing I noticed, personally, is a lot of black women feel like she's pandering to black women to get votes.
It's the Democratic Party was chartered the second decade of the 19th century to promote and expand slavery. They were used to dealing with slaves. They started the Civil War to protect slavery. When they got whipped and they came back into the mix, they formulated the Klan and everything else to keep the colored in check. I heard Biden with my own ears in 1972, saw him with my own eyeballs, introduced by Faubus, Stennis, Byrd, and Eastland. Oh, yeah, Wallace came in there, and they were introducing him as the new great white hope, the new Dixiecrat who knew how to handle the Negro. And I heard him make that speech that he made a lot of remarks to 75, 77 to the newspapers about Negroes are animals. They turn the streets into jungles and they need to be put into zoos. Young Negro children are like roaches. Once they get into school, you can't get them out. They turn schools into zoos. And he knew the Negro. And he made an interesting remark. He said he had adopted Delaware as his state after coming from Pennsylvania. And he said Delaware were cowards. They should have split off and gone with the South during the Civil War, and they were too scared because they were too close to Washington, D.C. and Maryland. I mean, it really bad. I was at the state capitol in Dover, Delaware, doing some research for a DC think tank, and I was bored. And I heard this commotion outside. I went outside, and they had this rally going on, and he was campaigning for some office. Interesting. He had a ducktail looking like he was out of 1959 rather than 1972. Calling black folk not Afro-Americans, not black folk, but Negroes, and black folk hadn't done that in 10, 12, well, 7 or 8 years. So it was not pleasant to have to listen to that, but that was him. So he did a lot that was very bad for the country. He and Eastland and Stennis set up something I think is particularly horrendous. They passed some regulations or legislation that allows federal prosecutors to intentionally persecute somebody. And by that I mean knowing that you have no chance to get a conviction, but bringing charges anyway so you can cause somebody to become bankrupt or you can cause them to be so discommoded that you ruin them as an adversary, uh, somebody that you can destroy by overloading them with superfluous nonsense that you know you can't get a conviction out of. And people talk about Biden's evil 1994 Crime Act. Well, don't forget the one in 1991 that was worse, the one in 1988, and several through the 1980s. And then that one rock will get you 5 years. Um, that's in there. And then also, he and Stennis are responsible for wiping out federal probation and parole. See, if you get a federal sentence of 5 years, you get 60 months. There is no federal parole anymore, not since the early 1980s. So if you get 5 years, you get 60 months. You will be under federal authority for 58 to 56 out of those 60 months, even with all of the good and honor time you can get. And I remember I used to lecture at one of the local security federal penitentiaries. And it was the damnedest thing. On the periphery, you have federal correctional officers as security. And internally, you had trustee inmates in olive drab fatigues, combat boots, and maroon fezzes acting as internal security for the young defendants who were in there for 1 or 2 rocks serving a 5-year sentence because they got busted by the local police, but the feds picked it up because they were trying to convert the person into a snitch against somebody they were interested in. That didn't work out, but the person still got 5 years, 60 months for 1 rock. See, it's preposterous. So I know that well. I was deep into practicing criminal law at the time.
Yeah, yeah. And I got to ask you about Donald Trump, assassination attempt. How you feel about that?
It was real. I've seen people shot up close and personal like that. When the bullet hit him, they keep talking about this powerful rifle, a 223/556 NATO shot out of an M4 carbine. They want to call it AR. And by the way, that stands for Armalite. And the 15 comes from, it was the 15th patented Armalite design, not assault rifle. An assault rifle is a machine gun, not a semi-auto weapon. So it's 22 caliber. You literally can buy conversion units where you can shoot 22 rimfire ammo out of the same barrel that you shoot the regular ammo. It's a light bullet. It kicks off out of the 16-inch barreled weapon that the would-be assassin had, and it's traveling at 130, 140 yards where Trump was relative to the shooter. It's traveling at around 2,700 feet per second. It is going twice the speed of sound. And when it hits somebody, it sets up a shock wave. And what it tends to do, since the body is 98% water, it causes a white puff of moisture before the capillaries get a chance to react and throw out blood. Now, the ear is not possessed of a great deal of blood. That's why when you get an ear piercing, you don't bleed all over the place. So when you saw the first one, you can see him, and there's a mist. Now, that supersonic bullet sends a shock wave, and the effect of the impact on the person that's shot or grazed by the bullet is like a boxer hit him, bam, right in the side of the head, if that's where it hits it. You can see him drop to the ground, and you can see the video with him doing typical expression like somebody got hit hard. And then he stands up, and you don't expect to see blood all over the place because it's an earlobe. All right? He stands up, and he's saying, according to the popular press, fight, fight. I can read lips a little bit, studied it. He's saying, fuck you. In other words, he's got the power fist, He doesn't know if they've taken the sniper down enough or not. And he's going, "F you, I'm here." That's what he seems to be saying. And that's badass. That's some real John Wayne stuff, for real, no play. As far as he knows, he's being shot at. That's the kind of thing you seek in somebody in a military unit who's willing to stand up in the face of fire and not try to duck and hide, but will go for it. Remember, you got all the Secret Service, mostly the women over there hanging off of him who weren't big enough, strong enough to keep him down. And that was real. The other thing is, it was an abject failure. Some people say it was a setup, but the problem is people don't shoot that well. And he's lucky because if you look at the reconstruction on this thing, on the animation, if you see the profile vertical plan view of his head, when he's looking at the screen, if he'd still been looking at the screen, he'd be dead. The bullet flight goes 1, 2, and it hits him on the ear rather than right here, it going through his head. The other thing that advantages him is there is a roadway that's perpendicular to the stands he's in when he's talking. Generally, in my experience, what happens is when you have such a depression, a cut, or a roadway, even if there are people in it, you get a breeze moving down it when you get a hot climate situation. So there seems to have been a breeze moving from his left to right, which caused the bullet to drift a little bit to the right, which helped him out. He moves his head instead of getting it there. The slight drift over the 130 yards, which is not much, maybe half an inch, quarter of an inch, but it's just enough to save him. So he's damn lucky. Now, the problem with this is that you draw down his regular Secret Service detail because Jill Biden has got what I call a Tea Party function going. So instead of telling her, no, this isn't just a candidate, this is a former president of the United States, and he's a resource from what he knows, the secret he knows, somebody may want to consult with him just on business of operating that office. You have to postpone what you're doing. They've got a build-up because they've got all these people from the UN function in New York that they're responsible for guarding. So they draw down further. They were aware of him 50 plus minutes before the shooting occurred. He's on a bicycle, and the rule is no bicycles. He's got a backpack. The rule is no backpack. He's got a rangefinder. What the hell are you doing? That's not condemning, but it's something to check out. So why did they even let their protectee take the stand before, or the podium, before they go check this guy out? They've got a call 10 minutes before. They're taking pictures of this guy. He's got this ladder he's put up. Nobody is saying, Mr. Trump, you can't go out there right now until we clear something. He's out there, and 3 minutes before it happens, not Secret Service, but the local police counter sniper team has said, hey, we've got somebody out here. Is he one of us? This guy's prone with a rifle. Who is he? Now, why don't they just shoot him? Well, they can't, because what may happen is you have local sheriff's department, 1 or 2 local police departments, other federal agencies, Secret Service. They may make a call to local agencies. Somebody on the SWAT team has said, get down here. We've got a manpower shortage. This guy's in civilian clothes. He just gets his equipment. So is this one of us, or is this a bad guy? Get back with us. Who is it? So they're making continuous calls for 3 minutes, and nobody responds, and nobody says, Mr. Trump, please excuse us. There is an emergency situation. Could you stand down for a little bit, stand by while we check this out? Nobody did that. And then after the shooting, what happens is just an absolute damn disgrace. Do they get him in with practiced ease? No. It fumbles and fumbles and fumbles. It took them forever to get out of there. Instead of the guy sliding in under the driver's wheel, in the front on the left, and the guy getting in on the right, riding shotgun, getting the president in the middle, and one person sitting on each side, and the guy getting in the tail of the SUV where he's got a flip-up window so he can be tail guard. They sit there F around, and it took them forever to get out of there. Now, I have been in the law office where the firm represented a vice president of the United States. The office represented a candidate for president of the United States. There have been presidential candidates came through Memphis that doing what I did, I got VIP invitations to go check out, and I know how the Secret Service is when they're around somebody, and when they got to clear something out, they do it. Chop, chop, and then here it is, clumsy thing, and then we find out that the person in charge from Philadelphia had never done this before. You don't even have Secret Service personnel that they're relying upon. There's others in the generic Homeland Security Department. What the hell is this? So what do we have? Recently, you got FDR got bullets put through his jacket or coat twice by a would-be assassin. Somebody tried to assassinate Harry Truman. You got a situation where somebody did assassinate John F. Kennedy. Somebody assassinated Robert Kennedy running for president, not a president. Somebody paralyzed George Wallace running for vice president. Somebody tried to take out Jerry Ford unsuccessfully when he was president. Somebody shot Ronald Reagan when he was president. And you got all of this stuff going in here, and some fool doesn't take this seriously. And you got all of this animosity and this hatred going on, not just with somebody as a political opponent. I've seen folk in family want to punch each other out because they are on opposite sides of who's supposed to go deal with the Baba Yaga, the boogeyman Trump, or somebody supposed to deal with Saint Biden or evil trailer park trash Biden, depending upon who you're looking at. And all that ramp up over 5-6 years out there in the streets over BLM, where Trump was trying to send the National Guard up to Milwaukee, and the governor didn't want him there, but he sent him anyway. And Kamala Harris is talking about bail the rioters out of jail. She's raising bail money for them. You get all of this hate going on back and forth, and it influences the weak-minded. So you got a mess, and then you say, oh, we can skimp on the security. And much as these folk hate this man, some of these folk, with all of these passions, we can just let some rookies come in here who have never done this before, tag this together, and he almost got shot. Now, if he had gotten, not almost shot, if he had gotten fatally injured, oh my God, we made a mess up, but thank God we are rid of it. You see, you have celebrities joking or seriously quipping, they shouldn't have missed. Damn, he should have practiced more so he didn't miss. See, you have this kind of thing on both sides. So, it's like, and you leave this guy unguarded, and then don't forget the other folk. What's her name? Was it Pelosi's husband that got hammered? They didn't guard him. And then the guy at the baseball game that got whacked, they didn't deal with that either. So what's going on, Secret Service? Oh, you got a DEI appointment for director and assistant director, and they don't know what they're doing. And finally, the director did through the dignity to the office of resigning, but how can you excuse that? And then you come in, Congress has subpoenaed you there, you've had a week. Somebody said, how many shell casings were found? We don't know, we're waiting on the FBI report. What, didn't you ask? What happened? How many people got called? How many times? Well, we don't know, the FBI is doing a report. So you didn't take it upon yourself now that you got this subpoena to go do? That was a disgrace. And then the other thing that I'm laughing about, Have you heard Vance when he talks? Vance is a much better speaker than Trump, and Vance has been getting all over Kamala. And he's saying he regrets that he doesn't get to debate her. But see, Trump's not an orator. He repeats himself, but he doesn't go around in a circle like Kamala. And Trump has a unique thing. I noticed this from trying jury cases. Why'd you repeat it? Because I wanted it to stay in the mind of the juror or in the mind of the jury. See, I noticed this doing public speaking. You can say something and people will come up to you afterwards. I really love that point you're making. Okay, thanks. I guess they liked it. But they'll also say, I really love that point you made about such and such. And you look at the guy with you, you say, I didn't say that. Let's listen to the tape. And you listen to the tape. You didn't say that. But they heard you say it because they wanted you to say it. And if you say certain key words and phrases, they'll take on flights of imagination where you said just exactly what they wanted to hear, but you only said 4 words. Not a long, it was really, you went on a great length about that point. I was so glad to hear somebody that understands, and you haven't said but 5 words about it. See, people have false memories. It's about human nature. So Trump talks in a way that appeals to his audience who thinks he's one of us. He's filthy rich, but he's one of us. He doesn't use these big words. He talks like one of us drinking a beer in the roadhouse or hanging out with the guys. So when he says it's just awful, it's deplorable, it's just deplorable what they've done, they need to do something, it's just awful about these lies. See, they hear that, and for them, he's telling them something they want to hear. And then there's this old thing about propaganda, about lies. Tell a lie long enough and loud enough, and you can get anyone, including the liar, to believe it. Tell something that's not necessarily a lie to somebody who wants to hear what you have to say just a few times, and damn well they would have heard it and say, that's my hero. He said exactly what I wanted to hear. You see, there's a method to this madness. So when the pundits who are wordsmiths who can use the big vocabularies when they write the articles for the newspapers and the magazines and for talking points for the talking heads on CNN and MSNBC, they use their big words and they look down on it. What they don't realize is that what Trump is doing is talking in sound bites. They're trying to write all this stuff out, and they don't realize he's doing the same damn thing they have their announcer on CNN does when he tries to give you a 10-second or 15-second soundbite that's supposed to explain something that somebody spent 5 years going to school and grad school to learn and has read 35 books on. See, the soundbite is what the American public is used to now. You're supposed to say whatever it is, however complicated, in 10 to 15 seconds. So that's how Trump talks. And he repeats the quip, the soundbite. So it sinks in. You don't miss it. And you can look down on him, but the audience he's addressing gets it.
Yeah, good point, man. A great way to look at it. How do you feel about the people that feel like Trump is racist?
Yeah, let's see. I can remember one time I went on to a conference in New York. I was a state judge. It's been 30 some years ago. And some people I knew were there and they said, hey, let's go check out some of the clubs. I said, okay. I hadn't been to a New York club, and damn. So we go. So there's this tall white guy coming in and all the brothers hanging around with him. But he doesn't have a bodyguard. He just walks in on his own, and he sits down and, he's glad-handing and in the animated conversation with everybody. So who the hell is that? Oh, he's a billionaire we got around here. Dude's name is Trump. Trump Towers. Oh yeah, that's the dude that owns it. Oh, he hanging with the homeboys. So he's dated black women before, like the woman he always showed up with on the red carpet thing. She was a fine model right before his current wife. Uh, I had, now I wasn't present, but I had 3 clients back in the 1980s, business clients, who, when I took the bench, I kind of left them in the lurch because I couldn't continue to represent them, but they got other counsel and their problem was getting finance for their business. Well, 25 years later, I run into them separately. They don't know each other. They might, I don't know, but I didn't put them together. Question: did you ever get that loan or that finance to get your business? Yeah. Well, what happened? Who'd you get it from? I got it from Donald Trump. And, not only did they get the finance, they tell a tale that, well, I don't even know if it's a tale, but the story is when they gave him the term check, he asked them if they were happy with what they were doing. Were they satisfied? He said, this is what I'm supposed to get. Yeah. And he tore the contract up, tore the check up, said, my gift to you. Jesse Jackson ran for U.S. president twice. Donald Trump provided his headquarters across the country and raised money for him to finance his run. That isn't too bad. So what are they talking about? See, remember that thing about tell a lie long enough and loud enough? The real problem is he's not into the rainbow cult thing. He's not an acolyte, disciple, follower, or such like. He's not into the unicorn. So he's an enemy. He also is staunchly into the manhood thing. Well, he said he grabbed some. Well, he's talking to folk in a locker room. Some punk wants to go snitch on him. That's a punk play. That's like somebody saying, baby, I really love you, and that man you with, he ain't good for you. He runs around on you. That kind of punk play. So when somebody's pulling that off, I'm not going to look down on him. And as a matter of fact, my first mother-in-law had a beauty salon for years. And I used to go down there and run errands for her, and I'd sit there and listen to the ladies, and I'm going, oh, wow, man, this is crude stuff up in here. Damn. The ladies are worse than the guys when it comes to not locker room talk, but beauty salon talk. So I'm going, whoa, damn. Wish I'd known this years ago. Hey, this is some, damn.
But one thing I would ask you though, how you feel about Trump saying that he want to get a police immunity?
It's you have to understand what he's saying. Immunity is immunity, but it's qualified. In other words, if you're doing your job, okay. But if you ain't doing your job, it ain't okay. Like, for example, right here in the Memphis, there's a case where 5 black cops got indicted for beating this guy to death, right? He had Crohn's disease. Tyree Nichols. So if it had been police randomly stopping a random citizen, that's one thing. But the point is the allegations is that the victim was screwing the baby mama of one cop, screwing the wife of another cop, and trying to screw a third cop's wife. So they found him, told him to back off. He wouldn't, so they went looking for him to beat his behind, which they did. But he had Crohn's disease and he died of the after effects. Now, that's the story in the streets. So is that cop action? No, that's all personal. That has nothing to do with an immunity situation. The argument doesn't even come in because it didn't have anything to do with police work. You got a problem with your personal life and somebody hacking into your women, you see. Now, that's the difference. See, what you saw do, this guy would not have gotten any of that immunity. Now, the immunity comes in like there's an armed robbery in progress. This dude's firing shots and he shot 2 people working the liquor store. The cop shows up, shoots him, and the family says, "Why didn't you just shoot my baby in the leg instead of killing him?" Well, that would be immunity because the guy's acting in the line of duty, you see. So that's like why you have the castle doctrine. Castle doctrine has been the law for the longest period of time, but it wasn't codified. It was more common law. So what was happening, it literally a case in one state was like this. A guy did a home invasion armed, and the homeowner was on the second floor in the bedroom, got his gun. And what went on is the homeowner was at the top of the stairs. The burglar is halfway up the staircase. They each fired a shot at each other. The burglar falls down and breaks his leg and sues the homeowner. Well, to clear that up so the homeowner wouldn't get sued by this guy for having a broken leg that wouldn't have happened if he hadn't burglarized the house, wouldn't have been shot at if he hadn't had a gun in his hand, they've classified, codified as castle doctrine. You're on your own when you break off in somebody's house. So that gives the homeowner immunity. That's what they're talking about. Now, if you say you broke into my house and I'm tired of this is the second time, and the dude say, "All right, man, call the police, I surrender. No, I'm gonna kill you." Bam, bam, bam. See, that's not exactly what time it is, you know.
I'm happy you clearing that up, because when I was told that, they was making it seem like, Trump, he was giving the police permission to kill black people anytime they want, so that's how they was making it seem. So yeah, I'm happy you clearing that up, man.
No. And see, he'll call a cop a coward. Remember that thing where that guy flagged down what turned out to be a female cop because she had a road problem and he was trying to get help and she shot him to death? Trump called her a coward, which is what she was. So, he'll call it like he sees it. And that thing they're talking about the Park 5 up in New York, well, it isn't that the police beat this guy, did a third degree on him. One of them's father brought the boy down and said, "My son confessed to this. He needs to tell you what he did." So his daddy brought him down, and the boy confessed to the police, not the police beat it out of him. And when all the rest of them confessed, oh, it's not like they saying they did it and nobody's saying we had nothing to do with it. It was a pretty horrible crime. I mean, it was a bad crime, the Central Park 5. So, in my perspective, many a time I've had this happen. We have a motion to suppress a so-called confession. Okay? It's taped. So, I've got a setting where myself is the judge, the prosecutor, and the defense lawyer. We're going to go to my chambers with the court reporter, and we're going to look at the tape recording of the confession. This guy is in my courtroom. He's an OG. "Yeah, man, I'm down with posse, man. Like I'm holding firm, man. They lying, trying to put a case on me, man. Like I ain't done nothing, man. Yeah." And I'm, we're on recess, and he's talking over the barrier. So no big deal. The lawyer gets back from an appearance in federal court. I said, "Counselor, you ready? All right. Madam Court Reporter, can you set up in chambers in the next 10 minutes? Okay. Call the court back to order. Court's in session. Remain seated. All right. Counsel for defense is returned to court. We will take a brief recess, and we will attend to listening to the tape pursuant to a defense motion to suppress the state." You go back there, and OG, he's in there, and the cops are saying, "Young man, this is a serious offense. You need to get yourself a lawyer. You have an absolute right to have a lawyer. You have Miranda rights," and they read them to him. You go, "Oh, what your lawyer?" I want to talk to my mama. Let me talk to my mama. I'll tell you anything you want, sir. Your mama's not an attorney. We can't let her in. Man, want to talk to my mama. Yeah, pass him some Kleenex, John. I love my mama. And he crying, snot running all down his face, and you just got through leaving him being a badass up in your courtroom talking about, yeah, man, the OG hanging tough, man. They lied. Man, what me, man, I tell you what you want, man. We stop, man, shot down, man. They the ones to you, man. They just make me do this, man. I am no do. I swear to God, man, I want my mama. You say, you damn. But the story that comes out on the streets is they whipped this dude and they falsely put a confession on him. You look at him, Paul. And I say, oh, by the way, let's see, these individuals have testified to reduce bond. Let's say, I believe one known as Short Dog is Stomp and Lil Earl. Take them into custody. The other parties that were unidentified heretofore and committing as accomplices in this crime were identified by the defendant, who informed the police of who his accomplices were. So take them into custody, no bond to be set. Man, what? You know, take them into custody. Man, you told on us. Well, it seems he did. Come on. Process him. See, OG Gangster is a punk. He's crying for his mama, but that isn't the story that comes out. Or you represent somebody before that. I was a pretty good criminal defense lawyer. I won a whole lot of jury trials. So you listening to your client. Yeah, man, my lawyer and I, we paid off the DA, man. You know, it was $50K, man. Fool, quit lying. You were in a car asleep in the back. There were 5 of you riding heavy in the car, and I got you off for insufficient connection with the one joint they found in the ashtray. What the hell are you talking about? Don't tell that lie. See, they kill all kinds of stuff that goes on about trying to make themselves look good. I wasn't even there, mama. They lying on me. They just trying to put on case, man. I wasn't even there. I got an alibi.
Well, nah, that nigga told you when you went
Fool,
out.
you know you are lying. You know what your client has told you. Man, do lying, man. I wasn't there. Well, he went to high school with you. 4 other people went to high school with you. One of them gave the police your mama's address, described what they found you with. Now, you're not there. How did they describe what you were found with 3 hours later, what you had on? They lied. See, I know dude couldn't have seen me. He was over there lighting up a cigarette, standing next to the lamp pole, and I was behind the dumpster. Wait a minute, how you gonna know that if you weren't there? Well, I wasn't there because he couldn't see me, man. He lied about seeing me. But you weren't there. No, man, I was there, but not there, man, because he couldn't have seen me. But you saw him. Yeah, man, you lighting up a cigarette, man. But he's told his mom and everybody they wasn't even there. They putting the case on him. So you can't tell because there's attorney-client privilege. You have to stick with the story he says. And there's a whole lot of that. And the reality is, for the last 50 years in American justice, just a little more than 2.5% of the people that are in the penitentiaries got found guilty by a jury. 97+% pled guilty, and 84 to 87%, depending upon the circumstances, confessed. Now, there are a few that shouldn't be in there because they are actually innocent and somebody did put a case on them. Kamala Harris has a disproportionate number of people that it passed through her hands where she was in charge of the prosecution where that actually happened. So I find it odd that you have not just the occasional thing, not that your statistical rarity, but you have a situation where there are a whole bunch of these instances. We had a woman that was the district attorney here in Memphis, where the state Supreme Court Harvard Law Review, Yale Law Review, Stanford Law Review declared her to be the most corrupt attorney general in the United States of America because she personally had more complaints and findings of prosecutorial misconduct against her as an individual than any of the DA's offices in the rest of the country had collectively over the same period of time. You know, so I mean, you've got a situation where when it's a rarity, but you've got a lot of them dumped in your lap, something's wrong with you and there is a problem. And I am aware of some very bad miscarriages of justice. For example, I got the youngest person in the world on death row off, got a stay of execution 23 minutes before they're going to execute him. He was 15 years and 2 weeks old on the date of his execution, scheduled execution. He's supposed to have killed 3 people, 13 years old. One of them was supposed to be the grandson of the sheriff of the county in question, and 2 of them were supposed to be his aunts. But then again, the sheriff's wife turned up dead on a set of railroad tracks for a few weeks before that. And the sheriff said this wasn't his son, who was married to the mama of one of the childhood victims of the childhood classmates of the 13-year-old defendant, because that wasn't his kid. And she turned up dead on some railroad tracks. And the mother was in jail doing 25 years. She got some slack because her husband gave the information they got a DC-8 confiscated with 9 tons of marijuana on board and 8 tons of cocaine on board. So there was $2.5–2.75 million of cash that was photographed on the crime scene that disappeared between West Memphis, Arkansas, and the crime lab in Little Rock. Nobody knows what happened to the $2+ million. A cab driver down the street had dated one of the older ladies, and he turned up dead. So, you know, you're trying to deal with a 13-year-old kid and put all this on him. And the murder weapon, which was a knife that was covered with blood, had several identifiable prints that weren't his. You know, wow, we whoopee. So you get all kinds of things that go on. So sometimes it's real, sometimes it's not. But the public is gullible. And the other point is this: when they started going to a 24/7 news format, you wound up with 1988, CNN was about to go bankrupt. It was almost throwing in the towel by 1990, but they had the Gulf War. Then they became very relevant, and everybody around the world was watching CNN because a cruise missile just flew by the 7th floor hotel room, made a sharp right bank at the end of the block, and then you could see the target flash, boom, where the explosion went off. And then what happened is a lot of people started going to 24/7, and there's not enough real news, so they started inventing news, talking heads looking at a burning cabin and saying, "What do you think happened, George?" "I don't know, Al." "Well, maybe, Al, what happened, the suspect was caught inside." "I don't know, George, that's a possibility. But maybe did somebody tell on them or something? I don't know." So you 45 minutes you're looking at the same burning cabin that they're looking at, and they're speculating. And then they got the bright idea, when they got cell phones, they pick up on each and every incident of wrongdoing that in years past would have been ignored. And then sometimes, to get it in perspective, try this. Just get your calculating function up on your cell phone and divide 1 by 360 million and see what percentage it is. You get a whole bunch of zeros after the decimal before you get to a number. So what they're doing is taking statistical improbabilities and they're making it look like it is the rule. Now, it's bad enough even when it is a small thing, but you have to understand a lot of what's happening is that the public is being hyped because they want commercial success in selling the commercial ad spots, and they need people to view, so they have a viewing audience. Now, we get a lot of hype, and news is not what it used to be.
Yeah, and speaking of death row, right? Have you heard about how Kamala she blocked evidence that could free an innocent man from death row? You heard about that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She's got a very high number of people that are in that situation. As I was alluding to earlier, if it's one occasion, okay, fine. Statistically, most DAs are not going to have that happen. And if it's a decent elected DA who is not one of these career prosecutors, it's going to trouble him. When you have somebody that has not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, but 10, 15, 16 instances that happen under their watch, something's wrong with what that person is doing. So I find it interesting that Kamala is sitting there doing what she did when they had the George Floyd riots. She's raising bond for the people to get out of jail so they can get right back out, get put back in. Whereas when she was a prosecutor, that was the exact opposite of what she was up to at the time. So which one is the real deal? See, I put, this system is crazy in the realities. I walked into a place to get a replacement jacuzzi for my house. The white guy that is the general manager runs up and he's just gushing over me. He's like 60 something. And he knocks $5,000 off the price of the jacuzzi. Yeah, let me go buy this. Then I find out I gave him 12 years in the penitentiary for a drug case. But I talked to him about what he was doing. I just said, we're going to turn the record off. Let's talk. So you don't need to be in here, and you pled out to this 12 years. I frankly think you shouldn't need to gone to trial, but I know you got some other things. Now, somebody's going to kill you. He said, if you hadn't had that talk with me 30 years ago, I never would have, got this. Or people, black, white, brown, red, yellow, walk up to me in Memphis and say, Judge, you remember me? No. Well, you gave me some time. Did I give you enough, son? Yeah, but it's that thing about manhood that straightened me up. Now I got 7 grandchildren and 3 children, and all of them are doing well, been married for 28 years. Thank you. Hey, okay. You see, it's like, what are you doing? It's not so much that you're doing something to somebody. It's just what you do is perceived to have a purpose, and what did you do with it? Did you just sit there and you a vicious somebody that's trying to throw everybody in jail, or are you treating it like you're the village chieftain and you have to maintain law and order in your village, but meanwhile correct it and do something about it? See, prosecutors have an opportunity to do a great number of things to stop crime besides putting people in jail. So do criminal court judges. Some people badmouth it and call it social engineering, but sometimes that can be a positive process. Get people jobs, get them to thinking like men and women instead of helpless pawns. So they look at what's bad as an opportunity to become heroic by overcoming the adversity. See, you can work with people to set up things that will train them for jobs, that will get them out of this mess, get them set up with counseling. You can come up with things like I used to do, and sometimes I'd have a prosecutor that would go along with it, said, okay, this is a closed case. Tell you what the court's going to do. It's going to reserve ruling on this trial. Since it's a bench trial, there's no jury. The court will reset this for 8 months. And if you get through the following programs, which will require the so-and-so and so-and-so, when you come back in here, the court's going to render a not guilty verdict. Now, that understood by everybody? Well, Your Honor, we think under the circumstances that's okay. Or you get a situation where you have, this happened in Millington Naval Air Base. You have a sailor, a chief petty officer, and you got a gunny sergeant who is a Marine. The chief stabs the gunnery sergeant to death is over a woman. So they didn't want this to go to a jury trial because they wanted to say, we need somebody who will apply the law and bring common sense, and you can't always count on what a jury is going to do. So it's bench trial. So the father of the victim was there, and I found the defendant not guilty. Well, the father stood up and advanced toward the defendant, and I highlighted, high signed the bailiffs. I thought there was going to be an incident. He stuck his hand out. He said, I told the stupid SOB somebody was going to kill him if he didn't stop this. No hard feelings. You did what you had to do. Now, see, that's something that people did not get before when it was in the newspapers, is all of this mess. Or I've had cases that went to trial in front of a jury, and the newspapers are in there and the family's in there and they want blood and they want somebody to go get the chair and all of this and the rest. And you've had a 2-week long trial and the jury has a question. All right, bring everybody back in. Mr. Williams, would you see to it that the foreman reduces it to writing? You get the question. You keep a straight face and you poll the jury. Is this your question, sir? So and so and so, ma'am, blah, 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 blah. All right, the court will now publish the jury's question. Your Honor, if we think the victim deserved to die, do we have to convict the defendant? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please retire to the jury room and refer to your written instructions contained in trial jacket number, so on and so on, and continue your deliberations and return such verdict as truth and justice dictate if you are able to do so without violence to your individual consciences. Thank you. Mr. Williams, please escort the jury back to the jury room. Now, everybody wants to see this guy on a fast track to the electric chair, and the jury just said they agree that the victim deserved killing. So there's a lot of that goes on that's not necessarily what the jury hypes it up to be. Had a situation one time, the jury was all upset about this horrible rape. The testimony is it occurred in the back seat of a convertible. All right. There was a gun, but the gun was in the victim's purse. The victim said she was worried about being pregnant, so she stopped, got up off of him. She was on top, stopped the rape, climbed over the side of the car, walked 30 yards to her car, took her keys, opened her passenger door, got 2 rubbers or prophylactics out of the glove compartment, locked her car, came back, climbed back into the rear of the car, put a prophylactic on the dude and climbed back on so the rape could continue. And she's got the gun in her purse. Like, yeah, really? Jury didn't say how long to acquit before they acquitted the guy, but I mean, it was one of these things that the papers were playing off as a real horrible incident. So what do you say about that kind of thing? See, these are the realities of the real world, and it's not necessarily playing into the entertainment value that news often has for the public these days.
Yeah, that's real talking. T.D. Jakes, he made a comment saying that he a pulpit pimp.
Well, I had a grandfather that was a big time preacher, and I know what that is. And I do not approve of who's going to donate 1,000, who's going to tithe $1,000. Everybody $1,000 in the line right here. Who's got 500? You know, if you're saving souls, why are you getting paid for it? And I don't like that. I don't care who you are. I had an uncle that was a preacher and a grandfather that was a preacher. Matter of fact, the grandfather was a bishop of was a disciple of Bishop Mason here in Memphis and took Kojic from Memphis to Kansas City, opened up their first church up there in 1896. And I knew him. Hell, I was in law school the last time I saw him. He lived to be 100 plus, so, ain't nothing personal against Jakes. It's just these people need their money, and you don't need to be collecting it to become filthy rich. You are doing something like what somebody does say working for the public defender's office. They're trying to ensure justice. Somebody who's doing pro bono work as a lawyer or somebody who is a doctor to say, hey, I've got some samples. I know you can't afford this prescription here. See, you help out, but when somebody does certain things,